And we've seen Donald Trump recently join TikTok. He's trying to reach those young voters. It was a surprise move. He's had great success so far in reaching a new audience. Let's have a look at his latest post. Here he is with YouTube star Logan Paul.
And where down we
Yo, I'm scared.
Is he taking note of what is happening in Europe and recognising younger voters have to be reached via these new platforms? It can be quite difficult to get through to them in the mainstream media.
I'm sure he is. I mean, of course, Donald Trump's extraordinary success in 2016 was in large part the result of him using Twitter so well. Of course, you know, the then pre-Elon Musk Twitter couldn't forgive itself for being used in this way, and was obviously mortified. But remember how well he used Twitter. All of the ad money that his opponents were spending on the traditional networks, he didn't need to spend because everyone was writing about him and talking about him on the basis of any moment's tweet. His two thumbs saved millions and millions of dollars of ad campaign spending. This time, it's sort of inevitable he'll try other mediums, and the TikTok will be one of them. And we'll see if it works. We'll see. There's no reason why young Americans are going to have to vote Democrat any more than why young French voters are going to have to vote for the far left parties there. But you know, Trump is, of course, an extremely engaging performer, and he's a man who grew up in the media. You know, he was a television star before he was president. He's very, very aware and very canny about using media and social media. So it'll be very interesting. I suspect that his rivals will do everything they can to cut off this way of accessing directly the public. But there won't be very much they can do.
Now, let's talk about the Hamas-Israeli war, the US-backed ceasefire proposal. The negotiations there are continuing. Hamas has sent back an unworkable counteroffer. Even the US Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken, acknowledges that the war's going to go on with that unworkable counter from Hamas. They're refusing to agree to a plan that would include the release of hostages in exchange for a ceasefire. But it's worth noting, Douglas, that the Biden administration has the likes of National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan, who has said some of the amendments proposed by Hamas are minor and anticipated. It's almost like he's negotiating on their behalf. So much for not negotiating with terrorists. It seems the Biden administration has some who are negotiating on behalf of terrorists.
Well, you know, I find this latest round of peace talks to be an extraordinary set of events. Israel is trying to get the remaining hostages back. It performed, or the IDF performed, Special Forces performed an extraordinarily impressive raid this past week in which they rescued four of the poor Israelis who were stolen from the Nova Party on the 7th of October last year and have been tortured and more in captivity all the last 8 months. So the Israelis want to find a way, of course, to get the hostages back. With the Americans and other interlocutors, they've got this plan, and this plan would bring an end to the war. Now, who is the party that refuses to bring an end to the war? It's Hamas. And I wonder, Rita, whether all the morons protesting on the streets of Australia and America and everywhere else in the West, calling for ceasefire, will register for even a moment that a ceasefire actually is on the table once again. And who is it that has rejected it? Hamas. And you know, I wonder whether any of these morons will notice this. I doubt it. But if the war is going to go on, everybody can say now with 100% certainty, as you could for the last 8 months, the reason that there is no ceasefire is because of Hamas.
Absolutely. Well, the morons, as you call them, marching in the streets in Australia, they never mention Hamas. It's almost like Hamas don't exist.
Yep.
And you are going to be involved in a debate next week where you will argue that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. Tell me why you think that is the case, because there are many on the left in particular who argue that being anti-Israel, being anti-Zionist is not the same as being anti-Semitic. And they point often to the fact that there are prominent Jews who call themselves anti-Zionists.
Yeah, I'm going to keep my powder dry for Toronto on Monday night. But it's a
Not giving it away.
I'm not giving anything away. I mean, it's a topic that's incredibly important because just look at the way in which this word Zionist is now thrown around. I mean, the disgust with which it's thrown around, the way in which this word that describes this noble and wonderful concept of Jewish statehood is being used as a slur. And, you know, as I say, once again, and I've seen it myself, saw it recently in Australia, in Melbourne and Sydney, you had protesters screaming about Zionists. Zionists, do they know what they're talking about? I don't think so. So I do want to set the record straight on some of that. I think that this is an extraordinary moment where there should be a moment of clarity in the West about this. And instead, I think that we're seeing an explosion of bigotry. And I'm looking forward to getting into the weeds in Toronto on Monday. So I think it's sold out, but anyone who wants to come to Roy Thomson Hall, perhaps they can bribe their way to get a ticket. I don't know.
Well, I pity whoever is facing you in this debate. You're not a man I would want to be having a all-out debate on, particularly on an issue like this, because I know you're passionate about it. And the debate is timely because we now have people marching in America and elsewhere in the West calling on Hezbollah to murder Zionists. And there's, it's just disturbing footage. Let's have a quick look. And I also want to get your reaction, Douglas, to what we've seen unfold after the rescue of those 4 hostages. So much criticism of Israel's tactics and the alleged collateral damage from the rescue mission. Was there another way for Israel to rescue its people? Should they have issued a warning, as the BBC suggested, before launching the mission?
It's amazing. First of all, on the Hezbollah people, just notice again, like the KKK, these people don't have the confidence to show their faces. Isn't it interesting that they're calling for support for a genocidal terrorist organization, but weirdly they cover their faces? Maybe they're not so sure of their views. Maybe they're not so proud of them. Maybe they know that Mummy wouldn't be so proud of them. Who knows? As for the sort of the raid this week, much of the media reported it as the release of 4 Israeli hostages. They weren't brave Israelis who are superbly trained went in and freed and rescued these poor 3 men and 1 woman. And the reporting on this has been absolutely despicable. You mentioned the BBC journalist who asked an Israeli official why they didn't give an advance warning of the raid in Gaza. I don't know. That's like asking somebody why they didn't go up to somebody and say, "I'm so sorry, I can't come to your surprise birthday party." I mean, the whole point of a raid like this is that it's a surprise, and the reason is that if you'd have given advance warning to Hamas in Gaza, then the hostages would most likely have been killed or spirited away to a tunnel that Hamas has built at all of our expense in the West. I mean, I'm stunned, as I said to you before, Rita, the simple lack of empathy with the situation that the Israelis are in. They have more than 100 hostages still held by Hamas and Islamic Jihad and terror groups and journalists and others, so-called journalists in Gaza. They want to get the hostages home. If Hamas wanted to end the war, it could end it tomorrow by handing over the hostages. Israel found the opportunity to get 4 of the hostages out. They were being harbored in civilian homes, in a civilian area. And there is a war going on there. And, the people who say, there was collateral damage, there were people killed, innocent people killed. I wouldn't believe the Hamas figures, by the way, and those are the ones that most of the media have run with as ever. But even if any innocent civilians were killed, obviously that's sad. But the problem is that it's almost like there's a moral lesson in this. Don't kidnap people and hold them in your house.
Yeah, that is a good lesson. That would reduce your chances of being involved in something like this. Before you go, I'm interested in your take on this debate that's happening online. A poll from 2023 is causing a great deal of debate among atheists, many of them embarrassed by the results. The poll found that atheists are more likely to support minors undergoing gender transition than any other religious belief. And only 1 in 3, Douglas, of atheists support a ban on transitioning minors. How can that be when atheists, that I am one, were supposed to hold science-based, evidence-based beliefs? And I have trouble reconciling that with these results.
Well, Rita, I don't think that anyone has, or any one group has a sort of prerogative on reason and rationalism. Atheists tend to say that they want to adhere in their moral frames to principles of reason and rationalism. I would simply say that this is a demonstration of something we've seen many times before, which is that the most reasonable and rational people can sign up to the most unreasonable and irrational cults. The gender woo-woo transition cult is one of the cults of our time. In previous ages, some of these people would have tried to work out how to turn base metals into gold. But we don't live in an age of alchemy. We live in the age of bizarre transition surgery, where cack-handed and wicked surgeons try to turn boys into girls and girls into boys. And they have as much success as alchemists did in the past. I'm very sorry for atheists who've fallen for this. But I would say that it should be a warning to them that actually, even if you make reason and rationalism your gods, you may fail to live up to your ideals. And these people in that poll, Rita, most certainly have failed to live up to those ideals.
Douglas Murray, it's always a pleasure. Thank you for your time this evening.
Great pleasure. Thank you.